Welcome to Another Thing. I'm Larry Menti. Is Donald Trump's executive order a temporary ban on travel from countries thick with terrorism, or is it a blanket ban on Muslims? That depends on who you ask. When the 9th District Federal Court was asked, they voted 3-0 that it was unconstitutional, forcing the president to try again. In a moment, we will get reaction from an advocacy group for Muslim Americans. But let's begin our coverage with Kolodziej. Ellen.
Thank you, Larry. One of the centerpieces of Donald Trump's campaign was to keep America safe from terrorism. Now, millions of his supporters agree that this travel ban will do just that. But many others on the front lines who help immigrants every day say this executive order will hurt the wrong people.
We are going to keep our country safe. We are going to do whatever is necessary to keep our country safe.
In his first few weeks in office, President Trump tried to make good on one of his biggest promises, to ban so-called dangerous enemies from coming into the U.S. With the stroke of a pen, he banned immigrants from 7 countries for 90 days, including Iran, Iraq, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen, until more extreme vetting measures can be put in place. The order also stops refugees from resettling in the U.S. for 120 days and bans all Syrian refugees indefinitely.
Last week was a very tough week for our clients. There's a lot of fear that this is just the tip of the iceberg, and this is just the first salvo in a very anti-immigrant administration.
Adam Solo is an immigration attorney who says the president's order violates the rights of immigrants here legally and discriminates against Muslims. He and others worry that the chaos at airports after the ban went into effect could become the norm.
Most of our clients from those 7 countries are either researchers at universities or doctors. So I got a call from a doctor who was a Canadian citizen who happened to be born in Iran, and she was panicked because she was worried she wouldn't be able to visit her family in Canada, and she's a doctor over at Temple.
Lawyers around the country scrambled to file lawsuits to lift the ban. Washington's Attorney General won his case, and the 9th Circuit Court of Appeals upheld that ruling. That means the ban remains on hold for now.
I said from the beginning, it is not the loudest voice that prevails in a courtroom. It's the Constitution.
So President Trump believes that a rewording and a tweaking of this executive order will make sure it's constitutional. But he says he is prepared to go to the Supreme Court. But with that seat still vacant, any ruling could end in a 4-4 tie. Reporting for Another Thing, I'm Kolodziej.
All right, thank you, Ellen. To talk more about the executive order and the travel ban, Abdul Mubarak Rowe is from CAIR, the Council on American Islamic Relations in New Jersey. As always, thank you.
Thanks
thank you for being here.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Is the travel, there's been argument on both sides. Is the travel ban discriminatory? Some people have called it a Muslim ban. The administration calls it a travel ban. What is it?
I would classify it as a Muslim ban because he specifically targets Muslims. Yes, he did.
But he doesn't in the executive order. It never says Muslims in the executive order.
He says it, but he doesn't say it. What I mean by that, he specifically says that those refugees are minority status in those countries. Well, who else is a minority status in those countries except for Christians? A. B. It's not just Christians who are being targeted by ISIS and other terrorist attacks. Everybody is. Muslims, Christians, what remaining Jews who may be there.
Of the 6 countries with the most Muslims, 63% of Muslims, not one of them's on this list. If it was a Muslim ban, wouldn't those countries be included?
Well, I mean, it depends, because what you have is a situation where you have, in those countries, why are you just targeting Muslims, though?
They're saying we're targeting countries where ISIS and Al-Qaeda have strongholds. And we're targeting those countries not for a ban, for a temporary pause, until we can figure out, in Donald Trump's own words, what the hell is going on.
He said he's been saying that ever since his campaign. So he's using this as a red meat, or red baiting, as it were, to target Muslims.
So you're saying
he's fulfilling his campaign promise.
That shows his intent.
It shows his intent.
Regardless of what he writes in that travel ban.
Precisely.
Now, unfortunately, and this is the problem with taping these shows sometimes, is that the travel ban has been overturned by the 9th District Court.
Right.
And there was discussion as to whether it's going to go to the Supreme Court or whether there be a new ban. We're taping this before the new travel ban comes out, which is supposed to happen, according to Donald Trump, next week. Mm-hmm. Do you see any wording he could use in the new travel ban that would satisfy you?
Let me just say that I hope that he follows precedent from the previous administration that did a very, very thorough vetting process with respect to any sort of refugees coming into here.
Do you think the vetting process isn't sufficient right now?
It takes 2 years for the vetting process to complete itself for refugees or immigrants coming into America, all right? And so unlike you have, say, in Europe, where you have porous borders, you don't have that situation like that in the United States. So the United States government already has a thorough vetting process in place. So why are you doing this?
Well, let me answer the question why you're doing this, because I appreciate you being here, and we tried to get someone who would defend the travel ban, and no one would show up. However, U.S. Representative Frank LoBiondo, a Republican congressman from New Jersey, did give us a statement, and this is what he said. The security of our nation and safety of Americans must come first as we combat radical Islamic terrorism. This is a temporary pause in the refugee resettlement program so that we may strengthen the screening process to prevent Islamic jihadists from coming to our country to attack us. You want to react?
If you were so concerned about Islamic jihadists coming to our country, then why wouldn't you put a ban on Saudi Arabia? Saudi Arabia had the 13 hijackers who destroyed the World Trade Center. They were from Saudi Arabia. I didn't see you place a ban on them. So why are you singling all the other countries out and not them? I'm just using them as an example.
I understand.
I refute because the logic, the logic doesn't fit even on his head. His logic escapes me because what you have is a situation where you're utilizing these terminologies like radical Islamic terrorism and what have you to implicate a whole group of people from coming into this country seeking freedom from oppression and from persecution.
But ISIS has said that they could use the Syrian resettlement program to get jihadists into this country. They've come out and said that. And we've had senatorial hearings where James Comey and other officials have gotten up and said, no, the vetting process isn't perfect. Someone could slip through.
ISIS is also using this whole process to say to those who want to join ISIS, see what America does? Come to us. Because it's counterproductive in one hand. Okay, because here it's a propaganda tool actually for ISIS.
They don't need any more propaganda tools. I mean, I hear this argument all the time, that everything that can be done against ISIS is a propaganda tool. They don't really need any more propaganda tools. Somebody that has a proclivity to join ISIS isn't going to do it just because of this ban, are they?
But it helps. It helps in their efforts, because America has always been known as a land of rich opportunities, where you're tired and you're poor come to be free, you're from oppression and what have you. And here you have now Uncle Sam saying, no, you can't come in here because you have this religion or whatever. You stay where you are. We don't want you here. And so all you have is for people to see, I told you so. You see where they are like? So, so it's very counterproductive in that respect.
Let's get to the temporary part of this ban. It was 90 days. The ban was 90 days that they can say, let's just stop so we can check out the vetting process. What is so objectionable about that, considering places like Syria is in the middle of a civil war, considering Iran is infiltrated with ISIS, considering that Somalia and Yemen and some other places are big and have a problem? You gave me a look when I said infiltrated, but we're now trying to take back Ramadi as we speak. Mm-hmm. What's wrong with a temporary ban?
I'm suspicious of it because, it starts off as a quote-unquote temporary thing. And again, this is part of Trump's promise that he made, his campaign pledge he made during his campaign.
Well, I understand his words are always going to come back to bite him. I get that.
No, I don't trust that.
But if it were a temporary ban, you wouldn't have a problem with it? If it really were just 90 days to look at the vetting process, you wouldn't have a problem with that?
I would have to read the entire language of it, and I'm not a lawyer. So I would have to read the entire language of it, or with an attorney to really fully get appreciation of what is really being said. So I don't want to comment on whether I would object to it or not. I'd have to wait and see.
Very quickly, people that are contacting you, people that are Muslims in this country or have family elsewhere that want to come to this country, they must be concerned.
They're very, very much concerned. And so what you have is a situation, you have people who are legally, who are legally have visas, green cards, and what have you, who want to come into this country, people who are separated from their families and what have you. It just creates a lot of chaos, as it had created. So, you know, trying to go back and retune it and fine-tune it and so forth and so on, I'm not sure how that's going to work with him, because I just don't trust Donald Trump and his motives.
Well, we'll all see it, because by the time this show airs, the new ban will be out. Would love to have you back. Thank you so much.
Good to be back.
As always, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much.
Mubarak Rowe from the Council on American Islamic Relations in New Jersey. When Another Thing returns. Coming up next, an important vaccination that some kids are refusing to get that can prevent cancer. We'll explain next on Another Thing.